Corey Boutwell, g'day mate. Welcome to the show. Really glad that you could join me today on what is a little bit of a different type of episode for the viewers and listeners for us today. Now, I tend to focus a lot on the technology side of reevaluating how people and businesses operate and communicate, collaborate, and function. We're going to take a little bit of a different spin on that in this episode, where we're going to take a look at it from a different side, and it's not always a technology problem, and hence I've brought you on to this episode. So welcome. Tell me a little bit about yourself for the people that are watching and listening.
G'day, Daniel. Firstly, thanks for having me. A little bit about myself is, I'm not sure exactly where you'd like me to start. I'll just do the last, 6 years. Finished a business degree in university, moved into business, started working in corporate. And when I was in the business, there was so much work that we put into working on the business in terms of the project management plans, the risk management plans, the team leader training, management training, just you name it, all the crazy stuff, performance conversations, difficult conversations. It was just constantly skills matrix, all the stuff, all the works. And I remember just thinking like, wow, imagine if you put this amount of energy into yourself. So I did. So during that time when I was working there, I poured all of this energy into myself, and some things that end up happening was I won a pro card in fitness competition, and I did it healthily and naturally against other people in the competition who were enhanced, which meaning they take steroids. So I beat them naturally. So I was very happy and very proud about that. And also there's sort of like, if you don't know, in fitness competitions, there's this thing about when you peak on stage to look as get as lean as possible, it's really quite unhealthy. And you hear people talk about how unhealthy it was. And I did a completely different approach. I did it as healthy as possible. And I was really using all of the techniques that I used, in terms of really optimizing yourself and using all the different plans and project management systems and the rest of it, and using different things, bit of woohoo stuff, mind, meditation, mental strength, journaling, all these other different things involved in that. And I ended up blitzing through that whole experience. The process was awesome. It was all easy. It was straightforward. I enjoyed the whole thing. It was extremely healthy, and I ended up winning that. So that was fantastic, which then led me on to my new journey after doing that, as I didn't stop reading. I didn't stop learning. I didn't stop diving really deep to see what I could do to optimize a human. But firstly, try it all out and experiment it all on myself. And it wasn't very long until people just started reaching out and asking for some help. And the people that I did help, we just got some awesome results, crazy awesome results that were just mind-boggling, that we're using through everything. And I'm very proud of those results, and sort of just taken off from there and ended up starting my own podcast. And we've just hit 100 episodes. So, and I've quit my job and work full-time coaching people now. It's quite awesome. It's like a dream.
Yeah, amazing story. And I can't imagine the competitors that you were competing against that were performance enhanced. We're too happy with being beaten by somebody that wasn't. So that's a good little feather in your cap. And you mentioned now you're turning your attention more towards training and coaching and that type of thing. Tell me a little bit about the people that you're working with. It's not, from my understanding, it's not all about athletes. There's business people and executives and entrepreneurs and all of that type of circle as well. And it's probably something that it doesn't get a lot of attention in terms of productivity improvement. So we often think about productivity in terms of the tools we use or the technology you use or that type of thing. Tell me a little bit about the health and the fitness and the well-being side in terms of productivity, especially for busy people like CEOs and entrepreneurs and people that have got a lot on their plate.
Yeah, for sure. So I really work with a lot of entrepreneurs who've had businesses for quite some time, and a lot of them have just sort of got stuck within themselves. There's kind of two different people. So one of the people who have worked real hard, they've done all the work, and they're used to taking it easy now. And they're like, okay, I want to step my game up because I can take it easy. I can cruise. I've done everything. I've worked my ass off and I'm reaping all the benefits now, but I'm kind of bored. Is this all there is to life? And then the other one is the people who are working way too hard. They're super stressed out, business owners who either own businesses with hundreds of employees or they have small businesses of their own and they're looking just to optimize everything. And I think having the business degree and working in a business is like giving me a really good lens in terms of being able to understand everything. But in terms of productivity, I try to keep it as simple as possible. And I think this is one of the most important things ever. And it takes a little bit of work, originally, and then it becomes really simple. And that is, it's just getting clear on what makes people motivated, because people do what they want to do. And when they're really passionate about something and they've got that super drive, it's sort of like nothing can stop them. It gets to the point where one of my clients, who is an extreme, like a really good example of someone who was like, okay, I'm kind of bored. Is this all life has to offer? I've got all the money, all the success in the world. What do I want to do with myself now? And it just come back to like the basics. He wanted to get extremely fit. He wanted to be passionate. He wanted to experience grit. He wanted to experience passion for working again. He wanted to really I just want to just dive into my work again and just be over enthusiastic about just waking up and just can't think of anything else other than wanting to work again. And like we got him there and now he can't stop. So he's on the other end and we're trying to like pull it back. But the main point in that in terms of productivity to actually answer your question was to really understand what motivates someone. And that takes a little bit of digging deep into the psyche, a little bit of psychology, and going like real down to find some of the little points which make someone tick. And then we just change that to what they really, really desire. When they understand exactly what that is and why it's important, why it's very, very important. Obviously, I'm guessing a lot of your listeners know if they've usually had some training, and they've probably listened to Simon Sinek and understand why and how the brain works. And in the very middle of your brain, in your reptile brain, is understanding why, which sort of expands out to everything else, allows you to get into your prefrontal cortex, the front of your brain, so you can actually think about things in a detailed, analytical, rational, logical way. When someone really understands why, and we figure that out through a lot of talking and mapping things out, and a lot of different exercises, they eventually sort of just go, huh. And then we set some actions in place and we put the actions, what they need to do in order to get better. If anyone's listened to Jordan Peterson, you hear him say, what you get exposed to, you get better at. And we expose them to them gradually. And then next minute, it's like, I've got to pull the reins back because they're so motivated. They're like, I don't even want to sleep, man. I'm just like so happy doing this. I'm like, no, you got to sleep, bro. Like, come on.
Yeah. Now there's obviously, working with these highly successful people as well, or high performing people, are there common traits that you see that these type of people share in terms of whether it's they're obviously hardworking, they might be regimented, or they've got a good their planning is very good, or motivation, or they've got good why, or whatever it is. Are there common traits that you see?
Yeah, big time. So the one main common trait, especially in terms of the successful business people, I think it's two of them. One is attention to detail, and the other one is understanding what it takes, or understanding exactly who they're trying to sell to, or whatever the goal is. Whoever the end user or the end target of that is, or whatever the end result is understanding exactly what that thing or that person need or want. And when they get that on a very high, like detailed level, then it's just too easy. When they combine that with attention to detail, it's just a winning recipe every time. And one of the things that some of the like higher successful people that I know is they're really the ones that haven't just built an empire or success or a business, because there's quite a few that I work with who have like built massive businesses, but they're still like stressed out all the time. And I'm like, oh man, this person's shaving like 10, 20 years off their life, like for sure, with the amount of stress that they're on. I'm like, it's just crazy. There's a little theory, and I'll explain it really quickly. And I sort of come up with it over a lot of research. And that is, especially with men in particular, is they need a daily dose of stillness. Now, stillness, calm, and presence is directly towards masculine energy, and the like meditation increases testosterone, for example, just because you're really still. And there is, like we said, there's like a still tank, and it could be, for example, everyone's different how much they need. Someone may need 20 minutes a day, for example, but let's say they don't get any stillness because they're just working really hard, and then Friday and Saturday come. So instead of having 20 minutes, they have like a couple hours that they need on that weekend. Now, a lot of people will not to adhere to that. And within a month period of time, they may need the whole weekend off. If they don't stick to that for 6 months, they may need a week or two off. If they don't stick to that for a year, that's when people have the holidays when they go, oh, I can't wait to take 4 years off, especially like high level executives. And they just do nothing for the whole 4 weeks. And it isn't until like the last 2 days when they're like, oh, I'm ready to get back to work again. And it's like, man, that's like sort of not a way to live if you can balance that correctly. Because if you're constantly draining that stillness tank over a year or two, people just get sick, burnout. I don't know. There could be people who are listening right now who've experienced this, especially the hardworking types who have taken a holiday and then within 2 days they get sick. Their whole nervous system shuts down because all the toxins are storing in their fat cells and throughout their body. And as soon as they take a holiday,
it's kind of quite common that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And that's literally because they haven't put in that little bit of stillness during their days. Now, the real highly successful ones, the ones who have done real well, they haven't just built their business, they've focused on themselves first, and they've built a foundation of themselves personally, which is really important, because they're like, if all my business and stuff crashed down, whatever, I wouldn't even care because I'm so solid. And it's like, oh, that's like the goal you really want to go for. And they prioritize a little bit of stillness. There's these things called think weeks out of the book Cal Newport wrote called Deep Work, where they'll just go away for a weekend and just think. No phones, no nothing. They'll just a couple of books, pieces of paper and some pens, and they'll just literally write the whole time. Or just during their days, they just block out a certain amount of time to allow themselves to really think. And what happens is what they realize is all of these ideas just start rushing into their mind. And they're like, oh my goodness, this whole time I've been thinking about this in the business, and all I need to do is think about this. Oh, I've had this idea, and then they'll do it. And they're like, oh my gosh, everything is so much better. How could I not look at the bigger picture of things? I've just taken this time, and it saved them a lot of time. So I think that's one thing that's extremely important.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, on the flip side of that, and I'm going to come at it from a technology side, there's an application that I'm heavily involved in. I use every day, and a lot of people do. A lot of people listening use Microsoft Teams. Now, as part of Microsoft Teams, and a part of what's called Microsoft Viva is this Viva Insights, and it's all about health and well-being and things like that. And it allows you to set focus time, so you can set a plan where you have a set period of time throughout the week, and it might be, you might be able to set sort of 20 minutes, 30 minutes for this sort of activity, which ties in really well with what you're saying.
Go Microsoft Teams. For that.
Yeah, I know. It was interesting when you were explaining that. Now, what about in terms of other areas of health and well-being? So things like exercise and nutrition and that type of thing. How important, if we tackle nutrition first, how important, there is the perception that, busy people, haven't got a very good eating habits or plan or things like that. In terms of the nutrition side, how important is it for, in terms of productivity, good food intake, even if there's a plan, certain times of the day to eat and getting into that sort of habit?
Yeah, so that is like one of the most critically important things ever. Now, one thing that's extremely important to note is just that sleep, diet, and exercise all go together. And you're not going to eat the good food, and you're not going to want to exercise, get your steps up or do whatever if you're not getting a good sleep, or if you're drinking too much caffeine, and by the time you wake up in the morning, you're like all groggy and, oh my goodness. All right, alarm, snooze, go back to bed, get up, somebody give me a coffee. They get to the office, give me a coffee. We got a meeting, give me a coffee. So nothing's
I heard that before.
Yeah, right. So nutrition is extremely important. Now, one really important too, because we could dive into a lot of this stuff, but I'd like to keep it as simple as possible. And this is something really important to know that a lot of people just take for granted. This is one of those things I was mentioning is about if you understand why, it's easy to make the decision and get motivated. Same with the meditation thing, or even taking times on team. No one's going to take that time or that stillness time if they don't truly understand why and it's applied to them. So in terms of nutrition and eating, what's really important is it's so individual. You can get your DNA tested for this. You can wear a device called an Oura Ring, which literally tracks like all your sleeping schedules and everything else. Now, everyone has certain times of the day, which is very important to know, that they're used to right now where they get hunger pangs, right? And those hunger pangs happened at the same time every day, depending on your eating schedule. And if you eat on those times every single day, which is specifically to everyone else, and you'll notice them because you'll get really hungry. If you eat like just right before those or eat something healthy on those times, you're not going to feel like snacking. You're not going to feel like something else. You're not going to feel or get hungry elsewhere. Now, what happens, which is really important, and the link between those two is every time that you eat on time for one of those hunger pangs, is it resets your circadian rhythm to be like, we are all good. So if you're eating on those times during the day, by the time you get to bed, your body is so certain that it's nighttime, because like the parts of your brain which tell you when it's sleeping, some parts of the brain don't know if it's like what's happening in terms of your senses. It doesn't get it. Like they don't register a lot of stuff. I mean, your eyes do tell a lot, but there's other parts of your brain that set your circadian rhythm which don't know times, stuff like that. They just go by when food's coming in. So if you can adhere to those, by the time you get to bed, you're going to get a much better sleep and you're going to wake up better. So that's like one really important fact to know. And in terms of nutrition, is there anything else? Did that answer one of the questions? Is there anything else you'd like to?
Yeah, it did. I mean, people tend to correct me if I'm wrong, people tend to get into a habit of eating at certain times of the day where what you've just explained is probably something that's, maybe completely different. You're kind of eating when you're hungry as opposed to eating at 12 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, that type of thing. Is that what you're insinuating there or alluding to?
Sure. There? Every time that I've had a job in a corporate, as soon as I've talked to my manager or the boss or the team leader, whatever it is, I'll say to them like I'm really happy to start. I can't wait, but I eat at these times, and if I don't, my productivity decreases. Is it okay if we have this? And majority, most people time working in offices anyway, usually have that flexibility to sort of eat when they want. But there's so many different ways and different styles that work to certain people. Like some people is better off fasting in the morning, depending where they're at. Other people, it's probably better if they eat a little bit in the morning, depending on their stress hormones. It's all very it's really difficult to say because it's so depending on the individual. But I can tell you what works for me and has worked for a lot of my clients, if you like. I can share those in just terms of like how to get around stuff.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. So the first one is everyone sort of knows how to eat healthy, right? The easiest way to eat healthy is to have high quality meat with high quality vegetables. A little bit different if you're vegan, and I'm not sure if people have listened, but there is a carnivore diet out at the moment, and I'm trying my own take on it at the moment, but it is significantly really healthy. There's like a lot of different, in terms of micronutrients that your bodies need, they've come out. There's a lot of different places that have come out for what you actually need specifically. And you can use an app like Chronometer, which is a very awesome app that myself and all my clients use. And this will blow your mind. If anyone's listening right now, you get Chronometer and you feel out, like you can just track your food. You just put what food that you've eaten throughout the day. And down the bottom, when you scroll down, it tells you how much vitamin A you've had, how much vitamin D you've had, how much vitamin E, your magnesium, magnesium, like it's got zinc, like all of these different factors are in there for how much of like the vitamins and omega-3s and all these different things in there that you have for your need for your nutrition. And essentially, I just recommend people is you just want to go a little bit further than what the like Chronometer app tells you, because it's regulated. They can only say a certain amount of things, and because everything is based off averages, it's not accurate. So that's like one thing that we do. The second thing is like for most people, depending on what food they like, we just keep it extremely simple. So we just do, most people fast until like, most people that I work with end up convincing them to get up early. So if there's any late rises, we end up getting a little bit earlier. So people get up around 6 and we start to eat around 3 to 3.5 to 4 hours later, like after eating, but massive amount of hydration first thing in the morning. We use Celtic salt, which is, it's quite crazy. If anyone's listening, just Google the difference between Celtic salt and normal salt. Really low in sodium, which is like table salt, but really high in all these other nutrients. It's fantastic. It's literally just good for all your hormones, functions, and everything else, just a little bit of salt. So we hydrate with that salt. And then we don't eat any carbs, and we have every single meal has a small serve of meat and a large serve of vegetables with maybe a little bit of fat source, something like walnuts, avocados, olive oil, or if the meat's fatty itself like salmon, then we don't worry about it.
So we're not talking old school boiled chicken.
Absolutely not.
And steamed veggies.
Oh no, stay away from those. No, I eat like for myself, I like to go a little bit deluxe with things, and I eat food like bison and a lot of fish and
Bison?
a lot of kangaroo. Yeah, bison's.
I can't say I've ever eaten
Bison or buffalo. It grows wild in like Northern Territory. Not grows wild. They raise them wild in the northern in Northern Territory. So it's and they like shoot them very ethically and sustainably. And it's a much higher quality meat than beef. It's just higher in so many other minerals. It tastes exactly the same. Like it's just like it's the same thing. It's just a little bit different in terms of the carbon. So it literally does. It tastes exactly the same. There's no difference. So I've swapped that out instead of beef at the moment, and that is just I just feel fantastic. And a lot of kangaroo, and then occasionally we'll eat like chicken or chicken thigh if it's free range organic, and do eat a lot of high quality eggs. So that's what we do, and we stick to those. There's a lot of other things that we go around, certain things. I have a recipe ebook on this, it's very handy. But there's like a lot of Greek yogurts, normal yogurts, plant-based yogurts, and all these other different things that you can use. However, we just stay away from carbs until nighttime. So we let our brain get into high performance because the brain likes to run off of fats and it runs off of electrolytes. And electrolytes are literally sort of mean like in terms of they make electricity move throughout our body. And if you know anything about our nervous system and our muscles, our brain basically sends electricity everywhere. So without proper hydration, there's no electrical currents. We can't get into high productivity. So what we do is we focus on hydrating, we focus on high quality fats, and we focus on a lot of vegetables. So we're getting all of those micronutrients and minerals in as best as possible throughout the day so that our brain can work and be optimized. Semi as if someone gets into a state where their body's burning fat, which is called ketosis. And we use that throughout the day so they can think and they can be clear and there's no brain fog and they're not feeling bloated in the stomach and all of those different things. And then at nighttime, a little bit later on, a few hours before bed, so it's not like right before bed, a few hours before bed is when we introduce some carbohydrates. That helps the body calm down because all day it's been optimized. Your brain's been going a million miles an hour. You've made like 1,000 decisions. And then by the time at nighttime, you really need to calm down to get yourself into a good sleep. If you eat carbs right before you go to sleep, you're not going to get a real good sleep because this hormone called insulin spikes. What happens is you want to spike your insulin a couple of hours before bed because on the come down allows your body to just really relax and get a really good sleep. And then you wake up feeling refreshed. And then,
Yeah, interesting. I mean, that wouldn't be a huge change in somebody's eating habits, I guess. For people that are listening, that kind of it might feel a little bit overwhelmed. Do I have to change my entire diet? Do I have to, go and catch a bison and go and whatever?
That was a bit extreme, but
it's something that could be fairly easy to implement as a starting point, and then see what happens to your throughout the day, how you're feeling throughout the day. And it might, obviously would impact on your sleep, and you'd probably be sleeping better as well, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you sleep so much better. It's just really important to know what you like. That's always what to go to. Every time I work with someone, we just got to go through like, what exactly foods do you like, and let's try them, put them in the chronometer. And then some people are like, oh man, I don't even realize that was a carb source. I'm like, what do you mean? It's an almond croissant. Like,
right. Now, also, what about this myth? And it's probably been done to death, I guess. But breakfast is the most important meal of the day. You got to have breakfast to be productive throughout the day. Thoughts?
Oh, it honestly depends on the person. See, for some people, if they're like super hyper stressed and they're suffering like hypothyroidism, and like let's say they have like really cold hands and they can't get like warm, and they're just like struggling for that, and they're just feeling really lethargic and tired all the time. But then they're feeling super wired, and they have to like constantly I need to get this done, and then they're sacrificing themselves, and then every couple of weeks they need to take a sick day just because they're like, oh, I'm so exhausted. For that person, which there's a stress hormone called cortisol, if they're waking up and their cortisol is just high and then it's high all day, I would strongly encourage like eating breakfast. Not immediately, maybe like an hour. But I would definitely eat, like, do all your stuff, do what you need to do, hydrate, and then have some breakfast for sure to calm yourself down. But if someone's like an average person who's just, getting up, they feel all right, or, just a little bit tired, or they really want to optimize themselves, something like that, I would say you just delay breakfast out by, just a few hours. Like for myself personally, I get up at roughly 5:15 to 5:30, and I eat at 8:30 every day in between there. So that's like 3 hours, and I always make sure I get some exercise and stuff beforehand, or go for a walk, which can be very beneficial. So it just depends on the person, and depending on what people are having for breakfast. The person who is hypothyroidism and super stressed out, I would say, it might be really good trying out if you had some carbs for breakfast. Have some banana, just try to get some vitamin B's in there, try to calm your body down because vitamin B helps calm your body down. See how that goes. For other people who want to perform really well and productive and they're not on that edge of the scale, I'd just say like maybe not eat any carbs for breakfast. But it's up to you. Yeah. Some people feel really good delaying and not eating breakfast until midday. Where I come in and where I would prefer to have breakfast, even though it's 3 hours after I'm eating, I would prefer to have it because by the time it hits midday, if I haven't eaten, I am so ravenously hungry. Like some people work differently. There's people who, when they're stressed, need to eat. And there's other people who, when they're stressed, are like, I don't really need to eat. I'll just keep going. I'm a need to eat type of person. So it's interesting to figure out which one you are because some of my clients are the opposite. And for me personally, if I got to eat at 12 and I haven't eaten all day, like I'll eat and I won't stop eating. So I got to make sure that I eat it around eight every day. Otherwise I'll just be too hungry.
Yeah. Now, you touched on exercise there before. When you get up, for example, you'll do some exercise before you eat and that type of thing. I mean, how if we touch a little bit now on exercise, what are some tips or best practices or around exercise? Is there a best time of the day to be doing it? I mean, like you, I'm up early. I'm doing my exercise first thing in the morning. Or is it, again, that kind of thing doesn't really matter. It's just about what you're actually doing. Yeah.
So it depends on the person. Like all these questions are literally like, it's so funny because there is so many tips and there is so much advice out there, but it's always super specific to the person. And I'm just saying for like the average office worker, like I would say from what I've known, what I've been experienced to, just a little bit more exercise than what you're currently doing. And then like scaling up from there. So a lot of people that like I work with, let's say, who don't exercise really well, is I educate them on exercise. And we talk about why we need to exercise and we go into the studies of it. And there's just been like, for myself personally, as being like a bodybuilder, and I love bodybuilding and I love the sport, I find it fantastic. There's just been a huge stigma around it in terms of going to the gym is like, oh, you're like a bodybuilder. Or like people go into the gym and they're like, oh, look at this guy thinking he's got all these muscles and stuff. But I'd like to reframe that with people and completely change that perception. Because if you look at some of the most successful people in the world, one of my clients are telling me this story, and it was super fantastic. And I can't remember, someone who was one of the highest quality businessmen who paid Tony Robbins $30,000 for a coaching session, something around the lines of that. Don't go on me, I might be wrong, but it was something ridiculous like that. And this old guy said, I really want to improve my life. I want to keep killing these things successful in business and achieve all these goals. And Tony said, you need to get one of the best bodybuilding coaches that you need to and start going to the damn gym. And that was it. That was it. And then the guy went and did it, because when people understand that the reasons for going to the gym and fat loss in general activate all the same pathways as anti-aging pathways. All of those anti-aging pathways are energy enhancing pathways. Those energy enhancing pathways literally recharge up the mitochondria in your cells, making your whole body thrive and flourish. And that happens specifically with resistance training in the gym. So for myself and just understanding people, if you're a guy or a girl or a woman and a man, and no matter what level of success that you're at in a business, wherever you're at in your life, you owe it to all those people around you to go to the gym and lift resistance weights so that you're in a better energy, so that you're in a better mood and you have a better attitude. So when you're leading people, talking to people, communicate with people, you can literally be a better person for everyone around you, not just yourself. And that's very important to flick over. And I'm super, super passionate about that. And then a little bit of cardio, depending on the person, depending on what they need. Like some people are just super unfit. Just when they look at their lungs and heart and brain and blood and their body and how their blood and lymphatic system work, which you guys have to Google that. If they want to understand how that works and they just need to get blood pumping throughout their body, then cardio can be extremely beneficial. I always say if you're working on cardio, it's 80% cardio, 20% resistance training. If you're working on resistance training, it's 80% resistance training, 20% cardio. Very easy way to follow. But if you're out there and you're listening to this and like you're not exercising, you're not doing resistance training, doesn't mean you have to go to the gym, put on 140 kilos on your back and squat down like 10 times. Absolutely not. This is going to a gym, using machines and just squeezing your body and squeezing your muscles under resistance. It improves your joint health. It improves your like you're not talking about electrolytes and how your body sends electrical signals. It improves those. It prevents muscle wastage. It increases all of your hormones. It increases like your skin health and everything else. And you're sweating. And every time you're sweating, your body is detoxifying everything and including all of the stress that you experience and all the environmental stresses in the office, which your body soaks up into their fat cells. And you can only get rid of them through sweating, peeing, and breathing. They're the only way to get rid of them. Even when you take antioxidants, it's still the only way to get rid of them. So when you're resistance training and squeezing your muscles, if anything is stored up in there or the fat inside your muscles, you're going to squeeze it out. So there's just a ridiculous amount of benefits. And I could go on for days on this, but when people start understanding this on this level, they're like, oh, geez, I better start getting to the gym. It's like,
I think that was a stigma or a misconception for a long time where, people didn't want to step foot in the gym because they didn't want to be the Arnold Schwarzenegger or have that type of size about them, whether male or female for that matter. But there's just so much more to it than that. You're not going to the gym to get huge.
Getting huge is so hard. It's so hard. It takes up my whole entire life. Besides like working, trying to put on muscle naturally, it's so hard. So unless if you've ever worried like, oh, I might put too much muscle on, you only need to worry about that if you're training hard as a fitness competitor, and your whole life is attended to it. If it's not, just challenge yourself and push yourself to like your own potential that you're happy with so that you can feel confident and be a better person, as I said beforehand, not just for yourself, but for all those around you, because they need you to do it, not just you.
Because I guess that has, that's right. And it has a flow-on effect. I mean, if you're, feeling better about yourself mentally, physically, the way you look, that your health, all that sort of stuff, you are going to inherently become more confident, be a better leader, be a better father or mother or that type of thing. I would imagine that has that sort of flow-on effect as well, right?
Oh, it's crazy. That flow-on effect is like the most important thing. And that's what I try to preach, and that's what I try to help people understand by really understanding why. And it's why, like with some of the high-level coaching we do, people might have heard about the 5-why exercise. It's one of the things that we do and what I facilitate, like one-on-one with someone, is we do 10 whys. And it's really interesting because 5 whys is good, but that gets you to like the middle of the surface level. And you sort of need someone there to poke you around in certain areas, especially if they've done it before. So I've had a little bit of experience with it. And when you understand, you get like really deep to understand what's like really triggers someone and really makes them tick, like really makes them tick. And then it's always comes back to the understanding. It'll be like something really simple. It could be exercise, could be diet, could be sleep, could be wisdom, could be spirit, could be like removing stress, could be stillness, could be mental toughness, could be any of those things. But when you find out which one it is, a lot of the time, especially for men, it's like, I'm probably going to get to the gym. What do I do? Like that's a great start. We'll start there, get myself confident, and then we'll move on with all of the other stuff, making impact and the rest of it, and figuring out the psychology stuff.
Yeah. Now, what about in terms of schedules and routines? I mean, a lot of us live by our calendar and are very regimented and have very tight schedules and things like that. How important is it for people in general to fit or block out time or time block, however you want to call it, for exercise or this stillness or eating, even for that matter?
I love the question and the whole segment of time blocking things anyway. Again, it also as I was saying, it depends on the person, on the specific individual. Yeah. See, if you're talking about someone who's on like a really high level, who's creating things within the business, essentially, like just one thing, I'll just go back to like basics for a second and then come in, is they don't want anything in their schedule. They want their calendars completely removed so that they can like work on and create as much as possible. So they're trying to eliminate everything in their calendars so that they can work their magic and make the really big decisions that they need to make and think about everything. And there's other people in the business who either managers or run small businesses or even run larger businesses who are just flat out all the time trying to get things done. Yeah. And their calendars are completely scheduled full with things, and they need someone to manage their own calendar just so that they can get things done. Yeah. So it depends on who you're speaking, because that person who needs to get like a million things done, just trying to schedule in a small amount of time and having workouts very specific to them or exercises that they can use, they know why that they're important and they're going to get the biggest bang for their buck, which is going to make them less likely to be injured. If they've got any aches, pains, and all these things, what is a really common fact, and one thing that I've learned over the 16 years that I've been training is that all injuries come from just like a poor gym like routine program. And in terms of someone seeing a chiropractor, seeing a physio, and seeing this person hoping to wait to get immediate relief from all of their injuries, is if they have the right gym program and routine for them, they will never get injured again, because everyone's body's working a certain way and they need to keep certain muscles strong and stretch and put certain things under pressure. So that's really important to know. So just saying that for that super busy person, they need to understand these things and understand what it is, so they know exactly why that they're doing it. Again, why. They know why that they're doing it. So they're like, cool. So for me to, not have a sore back and do all these things and operate properly and not be in pain, I just need to do this. And that may take me 15 minutes. That may take me an hour, whatever it is. We got to squeeze it in however many days a week. And for a lot of people, I try to save workouts for like the weekend. And just like, so their weeks are just like really packed out for like getting the work that they need to do. For the other person who's really creative and needs to make all of, have all this time with their schedules free, is they sort of need to go to the gym and train really when suits them best, because it's very specific to the individual, but they'll know, like, after working and having a really good routine for a while, when their creative states come on. And we basically just want to work around those, or use gym or workouts in certain times with certain foods, with certain ingredients and certain nootropics and all the rest of it, certain mind exercises and mindfulness and meditation, whatever you call it, that are either going to create a better response for them to get creative, or within the gaps when they're like, oh, all right, I've just stopped getting creative, on to the next. And what's a really important thing to know, and I learned this really little fact, and I hope just to share this with everyone, our bodies work in rhythms of 90 minutes. So when you go to sleep at nighttime, every sleep wave, one sleep cycle, goes for 90 minutes. And you need 4 sleep cycles a night. Now, it depends, because if you have restless sleep where you wake up, and let's say you wake up for an hour, now that's potentially like, an hour out of one sleep cycle that could be done. And if, let's say, you're going to bed at 12 and waking up at 6, you've just missed out on a whole sleep cycle. And you're going to wake up like, oh my goodness. Now, your body works in that exact same rhythm throughout the whole entire day. And it's super interesting to note, because people will, have a creativity burst for 90 minutes. People will get the most work done that they've ever needed to get done within 90 minutes. So it's really important to know when these things happen. And like during the day, whenever you need to work out or anything, it's like, try to time it around a 90-minute period, or at the end or beginning of a 90-minute period, where you can, have the best time to get it done. I hope that makes sense. In terms of other things, in terms of just like meditating, and I'll use meditating and napping as an example. If someone was to meditate, what I would always say is that I did this little model, and I have it on an article called, it's either Stress and Cortisol or Meditation, on my website, CoreyBoutwell.com. And I did this little model, and it just basically has positive stress, which is called eustress, and then negative stress, which is, I'm feeling stressed out. Positive stress is like public speaking or training or something like that. And that is, throughout the day, whenever you feel like it's at your most stress, is if you meditate for 10 minutes, it's just going to bring your stress levels straight back to neutral, which is exactly what you want to do. So depending on the day, because if you start off stressed and you wake up stressed, your alarm goes off, it's a little bit of stress, alarm goes off again, a little bit of stress, jump in your car, get stuck in the traffic, or you're doing too many things in the morning and now you got to jump on Teams and you're running a little bit late to Teams and now it won't connect and you're like, oh, no. like there's a little bit of stress there. And once you've kicked that off, it's very easy to remain in a stressful state all day, which means your stress hormone, cortisol, is going to be elevated all day. Cortisol is great for getting you up and helping you like really crush your day and get everything done that you need to get done. However, if it stays too high for too long, is when people start to have health effects, problems, stuff goes haywire. So just throughout the day, once or twice, especially if you're not like highly stressful job, it's figuring out how and being motivated enough to understand why you should meditate once or twice a day, just to bring your cortisol down, just a very small amount, just to bring that down so that it is gradually going down. So by the time you get to bed at nighttime, you get a better sleep.
Yeah. Mate, there's so much to unpack there in that conversation. I could talk about this forever, so I will have to get you back on, but we will wrap things up there.
Yeah, sure.
Now, for people that are wanting to find out a little bit more about everything that we've just spoken about, or even get some coaching from you, you are around on social. You give a lot of really good advice, whether it's on your socials or through your website. Tell us where people can get in contact with you, ask you questions, and even get some coaching from you.
Awesome. So firstly, I love asking questions. A lot of people, when people ask me questions, I'll answer them. And a lot of time people are like, man, stop giving me so many answers to things.
Yeah.
But no, so Instagram, I'm pretty active on Instagram. I'm always putting out as much content, as much value as I can on there. So if you're on Instagram, feel free to shoot me a message. With coaching programs, I offer like high level and high ticket, like one-on-one coaching, or I offer 8-week programs in group coaching. And a lot of the group coaching is all focused around like the fundamentals and the basics. And we go for 8 weeks on those and basically get someone from point A of being like, oh, I'm not sure to do everything, to point B of understanding why about everything. And they've completely like transformed within that time. And they look at like who the person was at A and like, wow, that was 8 weeks ago. And you're like, yes, how good. Yeah. So I do run those as well. My website is CoreyBoutwell.com, and there's a whole bunch of blogs and articles and different things on there. I'm also extremely active on YouTube and my podcast. There's a lot of crazy amounts of value on those. The YouTube is just Corey Boutwell, and the podcast is Corey Boutwell Podcast. You can put that into anything. And there's we got some crazy episodes on there and a lot of real good stuff, especially around this stuff, and some more in-depth things around myth and philosophy and psychology as well, because I believe that those and the body will come hand in hand.
Perfect. I'll link to all of those in the show notes as well. Mate, we didn't even get to touch on bone broth, which I know you're...
I love bone
I've got
broth.
no idea about, but yeah, I know you do. I've seen it I've seen you speak about it a lot about it in your content. So there's that we need to talk about. There's coffee we need to talk about. There's lots of other things we could dive into, but maybe in another episode
we'll
we could touch on those.
Yeah.
But mate, I really appreciate your time. You again delivered a lot of value, and there's going to be a lot of takeaways there that people can get from that. So really appreciate your time, and thanks for joining me.
Daniel, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for asking so many awesome questions. For anyone listening, I hope you, at least for one of the things that we've talked about today, just implement them in your life and just give it a little try. Whichever one resonated with you, and keep consistent with it and see how you go.